Good morning, folks. Give you a few minutes to get on board, and we'll get this broadcast underway. We'll just check that you're going live out on both platforms. Yep, we're live on Facebook. Should get a notification from YouTube any minute now, and we'll get this broadcast underway. Sorry about the feedback there. We're live on Facebook. Massive bloody feedback. Morning, Robert. Morning, Lorna. Morning, Barbara. Morning, Stephen. Good morning, Hugh. Good morning, Chris. Numbers are climbing nicely. Thank you. I'll give you a few minutes to get on board, and then I'll give a quick couple of words before we get on and get into the report this morning. Now, morning, Sandra, Alistair, Thomas, Margaret. Now, it would appear that some people don't agree with my view on the claim of right. So, in the description of today's show, I've put up the legal definition of Scotland's constitutional position. There's a key word there in it, and it has to do with the claim of right, and that is democracy. Scotland is a constitutional democracy which derives its powers from the legal system and the people, who are the supreme exercisers of that democracy, or they empower the government. Now, people who talk about the claim of right being a silver bullet, if you want to leave it in the comments how it is that the people of Scotland exercise that claim of right and make the view that they want to exercise that claim of right clear, please do, because the only method I can think of is democracy, a democratic vote on it. Okay, but if you seem to think that the claim of right is some sort of silver bullet which we can pull out our pocket and fire, tell us how to utilise that claim of right without holding some sort of plebiscite. Please do, I am interested. Now, Scotland's legal position and its Scotland's constitutional position is Scotland is a constitutional democracy. Actually, one of the definitions says Scotland's an independent constitutional monarchy based on democracy. But the key word in all of this is democracy. And if anybody wants to tell me how we exercise this claim of right without a democratic process, please, I'll be more than interested to listen, because apparently my points of view in this make me a buffoon. Now, folks, we're all entitled to different points of view on this matter, but please be civil with each other. As I say, I'm willing to learn. If Clinton thinks he can tell me how we're going to exercise this claim of right without a democratic process, which is a legal requirement in Scotland because we are a constitutional democracy, and it's written into our laws that the people have the right to claim the right to the sort of governance that suits them, which is the claim of right. Tell me how we express it, how we use this claim of right without the democratic process. Please, somebody put it in the comments. But please be civil with each other when you're debating these things, okay? That's all I have to say about that at this point in time. Now, in the truck, Davey out the truck and at home in his office in Salisbury, North Lanarkshire, where it is overcast but bloody warm at 20 degrees. Okay, so that's the weather forecast for Salisbury, North Lanarkshire. If you want to know what the weather's like where you are, look out the bloody window. And apparently it's sunny in Brussels. Good morning, Bob. Right, anyway, this is the news review for the 29th of the 8th, 2022. Monday started with a mixed bag in the rags. Refuge collector strikes across Scotland. We hopes of a settlement, right? And we're also told by the rags that there could be power outages this winter. All right, the cost of greed crisis also gets a mention. 1 in 4 families in Scotland face not being able to turn on their heating this winter, apparently. Now, amid the realisation that lives will be lost due to the energy providers profiteering. They have already reported. Now, the energy providers, let's get this right. Now, the energy providers have accepted that people will die because of their profiteering. Right. Now, energy companies posted in the first half of this year 5 times the profits they made in 2021. So the profits are up fivefold. And yet, here we are, they're already making massive profits, and yet their profits are going up with more than fivefold because it's just been an 80% rise. But what's really outrageous about all this is it just seems to be that people have accepted that people will die. We spoke about East Lothian Council saying, I get it up, these constituents, we're not going to make warm banks available to you in East Lothian, so people there will die. All right. Now, the energy providers' profits are set to rise, but even more again, as they demand tax transfer of our money to them and a shift of wealth in order to keep the lights on. Well, I'm afraid that's not how this should be working here. But we'll get a wee bit more of that in a minute. Also in the rags, 50% of Tory voters want energy providers nationalised as the cost of a living crisis sees 6 million middle class English voters set to lose their savings trying to survive the cost of living crisis. Now, this has the Tories in meltdown as the 6 million middle class voters are traditionally the Tory core. Now, they're no Tory party members, but they're traditionally the Tory core voters, all right? So the Tories are really, really in meltdown because, let's face it, when the middle classes get crunched, then things do change. Right, now what's interesting about the outrage in the rags over this cost of living crisis and the chance that 6 million Tory voters will lose their life savings in order to survive is that these rags, which are spouting this outrage, are the very rags that led the people in England and Wales to vote for this shit show. You couldn't make it up. Talk about gaslighting. This is what we mean about them setting the narrative and gaslighting the people. They gaslighted the people into believing that Brexit was a good idea. Here in Scotland, they're trying to gaslight the people into believing that it's Nicola Sturgeon's obsession with independence and not the democratic will of the Scottish people. Gaslighting is what the UK's populist press is all about. They set short-term narratives and then show outrage when the short-term narratives go tits up. But you've got to remember who owns them. Who owns them are the Tory press barons. And actually, this Fox fake outrage, or bollocks, they're all heavily invested in the amount of people that are going to die this winter as well. Wow. Right, moving on Monday. And Comrade Starmer, the red cheek of the establishment's arse, confirms the Labour Party are a unionist party to the core. So Comrade Starmer wants it written into the Labour Party's constitution that they will never work with national parties in Scotland, Wales or Northern Ireland. This leads to outrage in Wales, and the Labour Party where the Labour Party, this leads to real outrage in Wales, where the Labour Party have often relied on Plaid Cymru, who are also a left of centre party in Wales, the same way the SNP is a left of centre party here in Scotland, to get their manifestos through. Right, but Starmer won't get to put into his manifesto that they won't deal with nationalist parties, because that just shows them as British nationalists or English nationalists, both are synonymous with each other. Right, now, but what he is saying he's going to do is he's going to put it into the 2024 manifesto or the next Labour manifesto that they won't enter into any form of arrangement with the SNP. So I guess the Tories will be going back into power, because without Scotland, Labour can't get into power. And we are certainly no voting Labour, and we're certainly no voting for a red Tory who won't get his arse on the picket line, a red Tory who won't support the working classes looking for a decent wage. The Labour movement was started in order to bring equality and redistribution. And here we have the red cheek and the establishment arse distancing himself and his party from the people. Red Tory, said this before, red cheek is the same arse, blue cheek is the same arse, and at this point you couldn't get a fag paper between the two cheeks. So Starmer just basically comes out and says British nationalist or English nationalist, whatever way you want to take it, alright? But I'm sure the people of Wales, Scotland and Northern Ireland have sat up and take note. Alright. Right, moving on Monday. And amid fears of a recession in the fourth quarter of 2023, the pound crashes to a low of 116 to the dollar. On top of rising inflation, which is driving the cost of living crisis, rising energy bills and food price inflation, interest rate hikes, the consumer's buying power has been diminished by the crash in the value of the pound. And this also affects things like supermarkets and everybody else, importers especially, because the value of the pound and its buying power is being diminished, which means once again this a fleeing of money or fleeing of currency traders from the pound to safe havens like the dollar, the yen, and the euro means that the pound becomes weaker, and our supermarkets can buy less for the amount of money they've got. Our importers can buy less for the amount of money they've got. That forces up prices in the shops, and that drives bloody inflation. So the low value of the pound is another inflationary pressure, folks, and it's no looking good. All right. Now, also Monday, Goldman Sachs warns that it expects the UK economy to shrink by 0.6% in 2024. The Bank of England is forecasting a prolonged recession, stroke depression. Things are not looking good for the already impoverished residents of Brexit UK. Thanks, England. Your voting choices have brought disaster to all our lives, our children and grandchildren's lives. Do you know, since Brexit, we've actually spent more on Brexit than what we spent as members of the EU for the whole 40 years we were members of the EU. The divorce settlement alone went up to over 50 billion quid. Wow. No 350 million for NHS per week, as was written on the side of the bus, or let's say 35 million for the Scottish NHSA. It was all lies perpetrated upon the people by a Tory press and a disaster bloody capitalists. Now, it doesn't have to be this way for Scotland and Northern Ireland. Scotland's got an out. Northern Ireland, that's got 3 possible outs. You know, that really has to sit down and have a talk with itself. Northern Ireland could become a brand new state. Northern Ireland could become devolved from a Dublin. You know, or Northern Ireland can stay as it is. All right, moving on, Monday. And the Port of Dundee is chosen for the base for the companies building the Inchcape wind farm 9.3 miles off the coast of Angus. The 1.1 gigawatt project is a joint venture between Red Rock Power and Irish utility company ESB. Didn't see Scottish or British in there anywhere, did you? Anyway, the turbines will be 955 feet high or 291 metres as they grew up in the metric system. Right, the projects get underway in 2025 with Red Rock and ESB taking over Dundee's whole port renewables hub from March 2025 to March 2026. Apparently, constructing these things on shore will create 50 fabricators' jobs for a year. There you go. That's Scotland's economic boom out of our renewables situation. 1 year work for 50 people. Right, moving on. Monday, and Scotland's social security system takes over adult disability benefits from UK government. 300,000 people in Scotland on PIP and DLA will automatically be transferred over to the Scottish system. The Scottish system is now open to new applicants as well. The Scottish system will not have private assessment companies do the assessments. Your NHS assessment on your health will be enough. It'll be compassionate and it'll be much better organised. Okay, so if you have a health issue which was being refused attention by the UK benefit system, then resubmit. they submit to the Scottish benefit system. And by the way, when we talk about nothing being done about setting up a Scottish state, tax system's been set up, benefit system's been set up. Yesterday I spoke about 80 international hubs being set up, and the First Minister's strolling across the planet like a giant. You know, nothing's been done to create the Scottish state. Rubbish. Scottish investment banks there could be easily turned into central bank with the right sort of legislation coming from the Scottish Parliament. In fact, almost all the institutions of state are in place now. A bit of tweaking on the tax system and things like that, and hey ho. And obviously a tax code has already been written. Mr. Murphy doing that road, Professor Murphy's been working on it for years. And seeing everybody seems fixed and fated on a written constitution, well, you know, you can sit down with the legal system and see how you're going to mash one together, because at this point in time, our legal system is our constitution. As is stated in the description in today's programme. All right. So there you go, folks. If you've got disabilities, please move on to the Scottish system. All right. Right, moving on. Monday, and back here in Scotland, hopes of an end to the bin strikes dashed as Unite and GMB reject a revised pay offer from COSLA. Okay, the deal would have seen the lowest paid workers receive a 10% pay rise, or £2,000. Middle earners of up to 39,000 would have seen a 7% pay rise, and they get 1,900 odds, and the higher earners would get 5%. Now, the rejection of this offer will see jobs lost. Cuts will have to be made to offer more. So I've said this repeatedly here, folks. When your trade unions are advising you to knock back a 10% offer, which is probably the best they could squeeze out of the Scottish budget, then they're not working in your best interest or the best interest of your colleagues. Because in order to go further, I've said this, and so is John Swinney. Look each other in the eyes if you're working in the public sector for councils and the Scottish Government. Look each other in the eyes and ask who's losing their fucking job here, so that I might get 11% of a pay rise. The Scottish Government's having to drag money out of other areas in order to try and give the public sector workers more pay. But dragging money away from other services means cuts. And the obvious place to cut is in the services who are demanding the most. Because the fact is, we're on a fixed budget, it's a diminishing fixed budget, and it's controlled from out with your country. But that was people's choices in 2014, to have two forms of governance rather than being independent. Okay. Right. Moving on. Where are we? Also, Monday, hospitality industry joins the takeaways and bakeries and shop owners and small exporters and small manufacturers, and saying that they ain't going to survive this cost of living crisis. Energy costs are soaring, meaning places are paying thousands of pounds a month for what they were paying previously hundreds, and disposable income isn't there. So put the two together, the cost of running a establishment and the fact that nobody's got any money to go and spend in the establishment. It's no rocket science, folks. Wee Mrs. McGumpher's no money, can't he spend it into the economy contracts. Been saying this for years. It's no rocket science. In fact, somebody else has picked up on it and put a video out there where they feed a billionaire £20,000 and he's stuck in the Cayman Islands. They gave everybody else back the benefits and the cuts they had. They spent it into the economy. The economy grew because the Exchequer took more back in taxes. There you go. It's no rocket science. It isn't. All right. So there you go. Hospitality joins the rest of the SMEs saying we're going to go tits up here as the contraction in the economy accelerates. Right, moving on. Monday in Dundas Road, kid-owned Chancellor of the Exchequer, Nadine Zawawi, jets off to good old USA for cost of living talks. Hey, I don't get what that's all about. You have to understand that there's an international market out there, but this cost of living crisis, or this cost of energy crisis, shouldn't be affecting us. You know, the Chancellor should be back in his office writing legislation to cap the energy costs and the energy price. And he should also be talking to the oil and gas producers and telling them you continue to sell on the world market after you've filled your basket. And you'll sell it to us at such and such a price. There's no need for us to be suffering this. 3% of gas was all go for Putin and 12% of diesel, easily sourced elsewhere. In fact, the gas thing, you need to be short of gas at all. Signatory pen, gas producers in the North Sea have to supply Scotland first. Simple as that, or UK first. And then they can sell the rest in the international market. Could be done in a heartbeat. Could be done in a bloody heartbeat. All right. So, Salawi is offering a wee junket to the USA when she was back in his office dealing with the problems here. There is no government. There's nobody at the rudder. And even when Trust takes her, there'll still be nobody at the rudder. Right, as to the energy providers, if they can't make their money without taxpayer subsidies, then the private model, Thatcher's fruits have failed. They're rotten. Let's have a look at the private utilities down that road, and then here in Scotland as well. We'll take water out for Scotland because we still have that in public hands, all right? But when you look at how the utility seller, it was supposed to be more efficient, it was supposed to be better standards, and it was supposed to be cheaper. Let's look at it. Post office, the latest one we sell off. Price of stamp shot through the roof. Telecommunications, BT, the old post office, also sold off. Look at the exorbitant prices we're paying now. Seen that, they were exorbitant to start with, so there you are. And then we look at, let's look at water down that road. What a fucking disaster. And Brexit has made it worse. They can't get chemicals to clean the water, their sewage water, their grey water if you like. So you just pump it straight back into the water courses, meaning when they're short of water for the reservoirs and things like that, they can't pump it out their fucking water courses because they're full of shite. Talk about loon balls. Privatisation of the utilities hasn't worked, folks. Has not worked. Thatcher's wet dream has turned out to be a damp squib. Simple as that, privatisation. The fruits of Thatcherism has failed, and we can see that. Plain as the noses on our faces. None of the promises made when these things were privatised have come to pass. None of them. Services have got worse, they've got more expensive. Infrastructure dilapidated, especially in England, and 40 fucking bits. Railways, telecommunications, water infrastructure, all falling to fake. And these private companies are not doing what they're supposed to do, and that is upgrade all this infrastructure and ensure that it's stayed modern and fit for the century we're in. No, they just profiteered. The same crap and water infrastructure was there under Thatcher in England is still there. They've done nothing except for fleece the people of England. Mental. And they privatising the utilities, all the utilities was a fucking disaster. Right, let's move on. Monday, and the Independent reports that Boris Johnson is already planning a Trump-like comeback. Trump's looking to run again in America, and Bojo's plotting his return to number 10 after his successor fails, according to Rory the Tory. The Rory the Tory Stewart. He likens Bojo's comeback plans to Berlusconi in Italy. Berlusconi, if you're not aware of this, was also ousted because of numerous scandals, and he bounced back and all. So, according to Rory the Tory, he's likening it to Berlusconi and his comeback. I mean, everything's out there for Bojo no actually to be disappearing off the scenes. A petition going to the Tory party, put it to a Tory party member vote on whether he should be fucked out of office or no. Because remember, folks, Bojo has not resigned. He stood in the steps of number 10 and rallied his supporters. That tells us he was going to go to the Tory National Executive Committee with a petition of some sort to try and keep himself in place. If that fails, he's looking for a safe seat to make a comeback after Truss fails. And believe me, Truss will fail. Really. So it's mental down that road. Bojo hasn't resigned. He's fighting for to keep the job. He's moved into Chequers. Is he going to operate as a president to there? Truss going to be the puppet? Oh, God knows. Right, and finally, before we move on to the paper review for Monday, Tory leadership contender Liz Truss pulls plug on major BBC interview. The leadership race is coming to a close, all right. Now, it's rumoured that her advisors wanted her to pull the interview because she's well ahead in the race, and a car crash interview in the BBC could affect her lead. Right, Sunak has all but conceded he has lost the race. Truth is, though, as you and I know, Tories are white supremacists. The core Tory, the English exceptionalists. Right? So anyway, he was never in the bloody race. He's the wrong colour. You could attain somebody with a full frontal lobotomy, like Liz Truss. As long as they were white, they were winning. Just a fact. All right. So, in summary, what was yesterday's shite show like? Okay, right. So the Labour Party, the Labour-backed trade unions in Scotland failed to protect their membership jobs in Scotland. And it's being done to make the Scottish government look bad, but it's not going to work. And some people will lose their jobs, all right, and the cuts to follow due to the trade union actions. Okay, now the pound's buying power diminishes as currency traders ditch the currency due to the failing UK economy. Prolonged recession is predicted by the Bank of England as contraction in the economy accelerates. It's been accepted by those profiteering in the energy market that people will die because of their profiteering. The PM that hasn't resigned plans comeback, and Sunak all but accepts he has lost the race for number 10. Tory party MPs want Sunak back in the cabinet. So that's basically a summary of yesterday's news, folks. I hope you found the report informative. I hope you found it entertaining. No very ranty, but I can't rant every day. It's bad for my blood pressure. So let's go and see what the papers have to say this morning, shall we? I haven't looked, folks, as you know. I like my reaction to the papers to be genuine when you guys are on. So let's have a look and see what the papers have to say this morning. Scotland's papers: strike options exhausted and last orders for pubs. Oh, funny that, right? The Scotsman has all options exhausted, says Sturgeon on strikes as strikes stay on. They are. So they better look at each other in the faces and say to each other, whose job's gone? Because in order to get to that 10% for the lowest paid in the public sector and the graduate rises as they go up the pay scale, the Scottish Government's had to look at pulling down 100 million out of other public services over the next 2 years. And they've already given 140 million. So those in the public sector and the unions that rejected it better have a good look at each other and decide who it is that's losing their jobs and what public services it is that's gone, because the strikes will have to come to an end. Right, Looney Rag, the Daily Express, has Cosler's proposal unacceptable as schools and nursery strikes also loom. Unions reject offer as the rubbish piles high. But it is the Labour and the Tory party playing silly buggers and the trade union, and the people who will suffer as their members. It's Brit Nattery in the trade unions. And what we got, the Courier has renewed strikes likely next week. The Herald has, what a mess. Union leaders reject new pay offer as experts warn of health risk from overflowing bins. Now, apart from the health risk from overflowing bins and things like that, folks, 10% really is a great offer. It's a fantastic offer. Problem is, it might see train drivers and police go back out and strike. The Metro has last orders for pubs. Help with fuel bills or lose them for good, says brewery bosses. The brewery bosses are right. And the Edinburgh Evening News runs with last orders for pubs as well. The Press and Journal runs with 96% of Islanders face fuel poverty. Well, they can join the 72.8% in the mainland that's facing it as well. Now, the Eye has Truss wait until 9 PM for cost of living plan. I heard it. Need cost of living plan. What's going on here, folks, is it's not just rampant profiteering, it's creating monopolies. It's wiping out the small and medium-sized enterprises, meaning that only corporations can sell to you. Our choice has been diminished and our living standards are being reduced. So, Trust with cost of living plan, what fish. And the Evening Express, cost of living sparks charity shop staff shortages. Oh, mental. The Times has rushed to drill for more oil in North Sea. So much for COP26 and the climate commitments. Sorry, kids, your future's fucked if we stay with Westminster. We get our independence. We're 97%. We've already transitioned 97% renewables. We can just decommission most of that and keep open the ones we need for the chemical industries. The only rag the Daily Mail has, now Meghan drops her truth bombs. Not interested. Something to do with Meghan Markle or Harry's wife or whatever you want to call her. We don't deal with the Sun. The National has unionism is now Labour's core belief. SNP tears into Starmer after former Cook aide says UK survival has become more important to the party than socialism. Oswald says proposed ban on working with nationalist parties more extreme than the Democratic Unionist Party in Northern Ireland. So there you have it. The People's Party is no longer the People's Party. It's a wee sectarian, a bigoted, Brit-nattery-filled English National Party. Because if they're worse than the DUP, then things like bigotry and all that are thrown in. They're used as weapons in the cocktail. The Daily Telegraph has statins not to blame for aches, it's just age. Don't know what that's all about. And Alabama police to perform criminal checks at Dover. Sorry, Albanian police Albanian police to provide criminal checks at Dover. Oh, dearie. There you go. And statins not to blame for aches, it's just age. The Record has ex-Heart star Lee threats to kill wife and cop lover. Well, obviously, back during the marriage, he's caught his wife in a position, which wouldn't be good. The fact it's a senior cop, well, he's in public office. I can see him being dragged in front of his superiors. And what's the Star got for us today? Let's round up in the Star as usual. The Daily Star of Scotland. UK red alert. Fangs can only get better. Watch out for poisonous spiders and snakes. And a very worrying news makes the front page of the Daily Star of Scotland, which claims poisonous false widow spiders are invading homes. And snakes are on the loose after being dumped as expensive pets in the cost of living crisis. Don't think they'll survive very long out here, that's for sure. I mean, the only poisonous snake that's managed to survive so far is the adder. Right, anyway, folks, that's what I've got for you today. I hope you found it entertaining. I hope you found it enjoyable. I hope you didn't find it too bloody gloomy. Especially the fact that people just seem to be accepting that people are going to die through the energy company profiteering, that the governments are accepting that people are going to die. Well, Westminster is anyway. I know that Nicola Sturgeon and Hollywood are screaming like hell, but nobody's listening. It's a zombie government down that road and nobody's at the wheel. Sawawi's, the Chancellor's after a junket in America, but it's going to achieve fuck all. Meanwhile, we're told to wait till after the 5th of September to get a plan. So let's say we get a new PM on the 5th of September, they'll wait until after. I know Alabama, I do beg your pardon, Albanian. Bad eyesight, Ted boy. Anyway, what do you call it? The fact that people are just, there's nobody at the wheel. Nobody. Absolutely nobody at the wheel. Disastrous. And people are going to die, and it seems to be acceptable to the Westminster government. Primary duty of government, folks, have said this time and time again, is to protect the people. That's not what's happening down that road. There's been a genocide going on for 12 years. I've been harping on about it for years now. I'm hoping people are starting to see it. All right. Anyway, let's go on to the usual stuff. There's a campaign underway. Okay, so partisan politics in your folks and keep your eyes on the prize. And remember, folks, when it comes to Scotland's constitutional arrangement, I did put a description of Scotland's constitutional arrangements in the description of today's show. It's a constitutional democracy. And if anybody wants to tell me how we use this silver bullet called the claim of right without a democratic process, please stick it in the comments either on YouTube or on Facebook, because everybody keeps talking about this claim of right and how it's the magic bullet to get us over the line. Just tell me how you use this magic bullet. What, are you going to petition every house in Scotland? Huh? Or is there going to be a constitutional, is there going to be a plebiscite of some sort? Which of course would take us back to our constitutional democracy. Right, so there is a campaign underway. The unionists are going mental, and it's SNP bad Scotland shite. Labour Party's just become a unionist party, all out English National Party, Britain that party, whatever you like to call it. And so there is a campaign underway, so keep your eyes on the prize. Learn your how you gonies and get out there and win hearts and minds. But we'll have to change one mind each, and in this situation, it shouldn't be that bloody difficult. We only have to offer an alternative for what we see right now, which is an absolute shite show. It should be easy. Anyway, support the independent media, support Broadcasting Scotland, support Independence Live, support India Live Radio, support Caledon Media. Norrie does a crank show over there. Support Toons Radio, the iScot magazine, and the national newspaper. Support independent bloggers and bloggers. And if we've got a crowdfund, the fund are gone, and you can afford to throw a few shekels in the pot, please do. They do important work. Also, if you are in the Central Belt and can make it along to General Motors Club in Holytown for the 24th of September, starting at 7:30, the Industry 2 Cafe are holding a charity night raising money for food banks. Ticket price is £10, includes raffle tickets and buffet, and entertainment for Pete Scally, and you might even get a rant for me if you're good. So if you can come along, please. Times are going to get hard. It's important that we support each other. We do is what the Indie 2 Cafe night out in Holytown is a good way to do it. Okay. Right, health messaging. There's 2 bits of guidance left. The idea is that you wear face masks in closed public spaces and you continue to keep your hands and surfaces clean regularly. Right, now when it comes to social distancing, it's half the cards, but if you've got a wee sniffle, a cold, mask up and social distance for your neighbours. Show a wee bit of social responsibility for your community. And if you're still using NHS lateral flow test, please submit your findings to the NHS. We keep an eye on how much COVID is out there. COVID isn't going away, folks. It hasn't. And actually, this summer it hasn't flatlined the way it has in the past summers. So that's a worry with the winter coming on. Our NHSs are already under huge pressure. I wish I had more good news for you, but hey, we'll end on a smile. You guys look after yourself. We'll dredge through the crap that's produced as media here in Scotland and the wider UK again today, and we'll be back to do it all again tomorrow. All right, you guys look after yourselves. Bye now.